Wolfgang Keller at Königsbrau, presented by Alan Berberian. Synopsis. The Harvard Business Review case that I chose to report on was Wolfgang Keller at Königsbrau. This case documents the difficulties faced by Wolfgang Keller, the managing director of the Ukraine division of Königsbrau Brewery. Königsbrau is a company based out of Munich, Germany, and it produces premium beers that are consumed all across the European continent. Given their size, it is not unlikely for problems regarding improper management to arise. Such is the problem that Keller experiences. The director of the commercial department of the Ukraine division, Dmitry Brodsky, reports to Keller, who in turn reports directly to the Vorstand, which is Germany's version of a managing board. For the past few years, Keller has been experiencing problems with Brodsky and his practices. The brewery industry functions in a structured manner. There are the brewers, such as the Königsbrau, who create the beverage. They then sell the beverage directly to distributors, who then sell the beer to individual marketplaces and restaurants. Due to the structure, it is very important to maintain proper working relations with distributors. The reward system is briefly discussed in this case, and it is relatively simple. Each year, a performance evaluation is performed on employees by their superior, up to and including Wolfgang Keller. If the evaluation receives a score of sufficient or good, then a pay raise is warranted. Anything below sufficient indicates that the employee has qualities or ethics that are incompatible with the company culture. The environment of breweries is in a constant state of evolution. Prior to Keller being hired as managing director, he had built up a reputation among Europe as a very successful turnaround manager. Königsbrau was hemorrhaging capital rapidly at its Ukraine location. Thus, they gave the responsibility of repairing the financial injuries to Wolfgang Keller. In order to fix the brewery's income statement, Keller had to reform how the organization and its departments were structured, combining some and deleting others. One important decision made by Keller was the obtention of a separate brewery in Odessa, Ukraine. The profits gained from the restructuring of the departments and the purchasing of a new brewery helped offset the yearly losses previously experienced by Königsbrau's Ukraine location. The main issue regarding Königsbrau Brewery is the commercial director's performance and compatibility with company culture. Dmitry Brodsky had been in the brewery for a few years. He is described as being much older than the rest of the management team. As a result of his age, he always maintains a high degree of formality with the rest of his colleagues and potential clients. For example, in German, usage of the formal form for the word you is often reserved for ceremonial and ritualistic events. However, Brodsky makes a point to use this form of the word in everyday interactions, casual or formal. Many of his coworkers and clients found this to be a very odd quality of Brodsky. As a commercial director, there is a certain expectation of expediency. Brodsky did not believe in performing tasks in an expedient manner. For example, Brodsky was tasked with redesigning the sales force of Königsbrau, in addition to developing a comprehensive information and control system. A task that should not have taken longer than a couple of months ended up taking Brodsky half of a year. It was Keller's opinion that Brodsky struggled with deadlines when they seemed difficult to achieve. Brodsky also maintained a very formal and distant form of management. He always tried to keep his personal life separated from his work life, avoiding company outings, parties, and other gatherings that took place off company time. On various occasions, this artificial distancing led to difficulties with obtaining and keeping distributors as clients of Königsbrau. As the main problem of this case is the performance of the commercial director, there are many different decisions that can be made to help solve the issue. First, Keller can decide to fire Brodsky. However, it is stated in the case that the sudden removal of a company director would raise questions among the Vorstand, likely not in favor of Keller. Keller can also decide to not provide Brodsky with a pay raise, in the hopes that he will understand that he is performing inadequately and must make changes to his personality in order to maintain his position as commercial director. Another option would be to alter company operations around Brodsky's weaknesses, so as to compensate for them. While this will keep Brodsky happy, it may place a larger strain on other employees. The final option would be to create forms of learning modules to help Brodsky improve his performance. By pairing this with a mentor, Brodsky could possibly fit in better with the company culture. While this allows Brodsky the opportunity to develop, it requires a mentor to abandon their duties and dedicate valuable time to teaching Brodsky skills he should already have. Organizational behavior analysis. Personality traits. There are many aspects of Brodsky's personality that render him incompatible with the necessary functions of this job. For example, in the case it states, Brodsky particularly objected to Keller's comments concerning his inability to motivate the sales force because of a low level of leadership and no personality. In this situation, Brodsky was having difficulty inspiring his sales team to meet and exceed their goals. This was attributed to a lack of proper personality traits required for a motivational leader. Throughout the various descriptions of Brodsky's problems, it becomes clear that he is lacking in both conscientiousness and agreeableness. Brodsky is often reluctant to cooperate with the mandates of upper management, and would much prefer to make his own decisions, making him lacking in conscientiousness and agreeableness. His job also requires him to go out of his way to make personal connections to the owners and operators of the distributors. As he is not extroverted, he does not fulfill this aspect of his job. His personality is obviously incompatible with this position. To prevent issues such as this one, companies can institute a Myers-Briggs personality indicator test to help determine the better candidate for a job. This would allow employers to screen individuals beyond their resume and interview. Decision-making and biases. While Brodsky enjoyed delegating, Keller struggled with it. In the text, it says Brodsky tended to be analytical and deliberate in his actions, and preferred to delegate as much as possible. In contrast, Keller tended to be impatient and action-oriented, using a hands-on approach when dealing with problems. It seems as though Keller has trust issues, as he is unable to believe that other employees possess the capabilities to complete a certain task. Such is the reason he always rushes to complete a task by himself instead of coordinating it with a team. Thus, Keller could be said to be biased towards action, whereas Brodsky is biased towards inaction, as shown by his slow work pace and excessively detailed strategy formulation. Ethical considerations. Zelenko is Brodsky's marketing manager. Keller's previous friendship and working relationship with Zelenko could have resulted in Zelenko's obtention of his current position in Koningsbrau. This would be a nepotistic ethical violation on Keller's end. Keller attempted to compensate for his relationship with Zelenko by expecting more productivity from him. Setting unrealistically high expectations can result in unethical decision-making in terms of responsibility matrices and performance reviews. It seems as though the halo effect is at play in the decision made by Keller regarding Zelenko, as his opinion of Zelenko is based off his prior relationship with him, which was a positive one. Zelenko is also young in comparison to Brodsky, much like Keller himself. Thus, Keller might overlook the experience brought to the table by Brodsky as a result of his age, and he might overvalue the experience of Zelenko. Motivation. In the case, it is obvious that Keller is one of the most motivated employees of the company. This is shown by his desire to complete all objectives rapidly, efficiently, and effectively. Keller likely derives this motivation from his desire to be on the Vorstand. Team processes and leadership efficacy. As a leader, Brodsky was struggling. The best example from the case would be his mismanagement of the sales team, resulting in countless hours of time and money lost. Brodsky tends to depend on positional leadership to manage his teams, whereas Keller makes an effort to create personal bonds, utilizing referent power to help delegate employees and distributors. Throughout the case, it becomes obvious that Keller has more success with leading and maintaining employee relations than Brodsky. Thus, it can be concluded that in Koningsbrau, the leadership through referent power is more functional than leadership based solely on positional standing in the company. The difference in leadership skills could possibly be derived from the vast cultural differences between Keller and Brodsky. Brodsky comes from Ukraine, where leadership is typically viewed based upon position. For example, the head of any household in Ukraine is male, simply as a result of being a male. This is possibly where he derives his positional leadership from. Keller, on the other hand, comes from various places across the world, and thus has been exposed to different leadership styles and chooses not to adhere to a single cultural style. He has chosen to follow referent leadership, likely due to its efficacy in helping establish personal and long-lasting bonds. Team and organizational culture. The organizational culture of Koningsbrau encourages higher-level managers to develop personal relationships with their employees and distributors. As it is a primarily sales-based industry, there is a heavy emphasis on classic sales culture. Employees are encouraged to think on their own and be problem solvers instead of conducting ivory tower analyses. As it is a German-based corporation, employees are expected to maintain the working culture of decreasing delays, being hands-on, and doing whatever needs to be done to accomplish the task. Problems and recommendations. The root problem of this case is Dmitry Brodsky's lack of performance and general incompatibility with the company culture. As stated in the case, there are three main choices to resolving this issue. First, Brodsky can be fired or denied a salary increase. Second, Keller can work around to help Brodsky improve his performance. Lastly, Keller can reorganize the department around Brodsky's inadequacies. I believe the best option is to create a series of learning modules, weekly meetings, and seminars that are structured to help Brodsky improve his performance and become more compatible with company culture. If Keller and Brodsky had weekly meetings regarding performance, an open line of communication would be created, eliminating any chance of miscommunication and thus setting clear objectives for Brodsky. Brodsky should also be placed in seminars regarding proper organizational and deadline management skills. I believe that with the proper training, Brodsky has the potential to fit in with the company culture very nicely. This marks the end of the presentation. Thank you, Professor Scott, for listening to the entire thing. I really enjoyed your class, and I believe I learned a lot about organizational behavior and psychology that will benefit me as a manager in the future. I hope you have a wonderful summer break, and I look forward to taking leadership and ethics with you in the near future.